Can you see the slide now? And extremely thankful to Dr. Mishra and the team, his team, for arranging this morning breakfast session. This breakfast session has been very popular in the Western world. In most of the international Congress meeting, we have this early morning breakfast presentation in which you are provided with breakfast on the table, and there's a slide and there's a meeting going on. This is an new experiment, and so really thankful to Dr. Bharat Arora. And can you not see the slide?
Yes, sir.
So today would be now talking on one of the very, very useful, very popular, very pertinent molecule to the physiological way we control diabetes, and that is vildagliptin. In fact, incretin has been the most primitive way of autoregulation of the carbohydrate metabolism. And this system was adopted right in the beginning of the evolution of the animal, because all animal food is not available every time. So animal has to take the food, consume the food, store the food, and release as and when it is required. And at the time of energy, when rushing for hunting or doing the job or doing the work, all these primitive human being as well as the animal, they require to use this energy which has been stored. The concept of incretin is based on the same, that when the food is available into the portal system, then at that time, we need a release of insulin from the beta cell so that we can immediately metabolize, and it goes to the mitochondria when there's a combustion and we get the energy. And when we are resting, we don't need it. All the food which we consume through gut need not be at that time 100% absorbed, because you cannot eat and you cannot work, you cannot run. Two things cannot happen together. So system has developed incretin hormone primarily developed for the same very purpose. As they arise into the portal system, we should shut off the glucagon. And when the glucagon will be shut off, then this polysaccharide, complex polysaccharide will be broken to monosaccharide, then to glucose, and it will go to the from portal system to the liver. It will be deposited there. Now, having the food consumed, then now we go for the work, or we go for the job, or we require energy, then everything is reversed back. So incretin hormone, basically two, GLP and GIP, and based on this, the enzyme which is there, DPP4, when it is not required, it shuts off. And when it is required, then it doesn't work. And then, so it gets elevated. So GLP is the most targeted hormone, and insulin based on the GIP secretion as well. So this new molecule which have developed in the last 2 decades, 2.5, 3 decades, they are the incretin-based therapy, and they're more physiological because they do not hit directly beta cell. They secrete, they do help in secretion of the glucose, but then it's an indirect way. And they also preserve beta cell. They help to come out from the glucotoxicity. So the whole presentation would be talking on the evolution and the classes to which they belong and the evidences, and we'll go to the summary. The most common molecule which all of us have used in the last 70, 80 years have been the combination of metformin and sulfonylurea. Metformin still stands number one, the cheapest drug, commonly available, has multiple action. And I have a slide, there's no purpose of showing right now, almost you must have seen it several times, that right from the days of Framingham studied onward, the UKPDS, when the published last slide reviewed in 1960 to 1999, 1908, even 34% protection of the cardiovascular is credited to metformin. So metformin has that credibility. It has survived for the last 80 years. It will continue to do so. We also have sulfonylurea, which is very old and very strong molecule and would bring down the sugar as and when you give it, irrespective of whether there is food available or not available. So we are now thinking beyond glucose. And there has been a paradigm shift in the treatment of approach. All the time we looked at the beta cell, and we wanted to preserve beta cell because in type 2 diabetes over the years after the insulin resistance, insulinopenia, these beta cells, they lose their function. We don't want them to lose them. They could even die. But the whole idea behind using these incretin-based therapies to preserve beta cell function. Currently, we have drugs which improve and lower the glucose. And we want always to be on the lower side so that we do not have any glucotoxicity or glucotoxicity-based conditions. So launch of incretin-based drugs like dipeptide peptidase 4 inhibitors have made a paradigm shift in the diabetes care. And therefore, they become very, very popular. When you look at the shift on the glucose-centric, then the beta cell-centric concept. So glucocentric means whatever means you lower the blood sugar, irrespective of respect to the beta cell. Beta-centric means you preserve the beta cell function, you improve beta cell function. If possible, you regenerate beta cell, and if possible, you replicate beta cell as the age advances. So in the past, we had the balance between tight glycemic control, which led to often hypoglycemia. Current, we achieve glycemic goal without hypoglycemia. And the reason is that availability of incretin-based drugs. Insulin resistance is to begin with. Whole problem starts because of the insulin resistance, whether it is because of adipocyte or because of the fat deposit in the hepatocyte or because of the pro-inflammatory cytokine. All they lead to obesity, metabolic syndrome, lead to insulin resistance. We want to break this resistance. And therefore, we do not promote secretion immediately. The drugs like metformin, they help at the level of breaking the insulin resistance. If it fails, it doesn't work, requirement is too high, beta cell have become too meager or they have been destroyed, then we use certainly drugs which promote insulin secretion of beta cell. And we early achievement of near normal glucose control, aiming beta cell preservation and prevention of diabetic complication for longevity. So current evidence suggests that type 2 diabetes never develop unless beta cell fail to compensate insulin resistance. This is exactly what happens. We have resistance, we secrete more insulin, resistance become little better, but then our requirement is more, than we have a glucotoxicity, there are portal system, more in pouring of the glucose from the hepatocyte and the gut. And all these could rapid rise in the testing of pathogens resulted in change in the treatment approach beyond insulin. How did DPP-4 evolve? Right, I said about 100 years history, more than 120 years history, as older as insulin, rather older than insulin. This concept was conceived. 30s incretin was demonstrated physiologically. The concept came in 64 as a biological intervention proposed. 83, GLP was discovered. 1990, we had first GLP-1 study in type 2 diabetes mellitus. And 95 onward, there were some basic studies. In 2000, we had animal study, and vildagliptin was one molecule which have shown initially experimental evidence proved that it preserves the beta cell, doesn't let beta cell destroy. And then ultimately 2005, we have the final molecule in the clinical trial, and also association of other GLP receptor agonist and DPP-4 inhibitors, they were developed. So DPP-4 inhibitor addresses an unmet pathophysiological need in type 2 diabetes management. And the physiological level of GLP-1 multiple effects on plasma glucose. What it does, improves glucose uptake in fat and muscle tissue. I said this is the most important part in the evolution of the life of the primitive animal. The moment you have food in the gut, it needs to be transported to the tooth, and one is the muscle, another is the liver. So fat and muscle tissue, inadequate glucagon suppression, because Glucagon keeps on rising. When you are not eating, when you are hungry, when you do not have food, when you are hibernating, then glucagon goes up. It starts mobilizing glycogen and also synthesizing sugar. We need to shut it down. So incretin-based therapy would suppress the glucagon secretion. Acute beta cell toxicity happens because of the high glucose turnover. So it improves insulin secretion from beta cell and increases insulin biosynthesis, promote beta cell differentiation. We understand now that during crisis, many alpha cell, beta cell, even gamma cell we have, and these are some of the cells, they ultimately differentiate out at the time of crisis. So we differentiate them to take the role, and this would ultimately lead to improvement in the beta cell apoptosis, so they would not die early. What are the advantages of DP4 inhibitors? They are quite efficacious. They have minimal risk of hypoglycemia. One of the aim that one should never feel the terror of the fear of the hypoglycemia. They are weight neutral, so you don't put on weight. They are very well tolerated. They have got a good cardiovascular safety, quite durable, low glycemic variability. This is again important. You can use a drug where the sugar is 200 and you brought down to 80 or 90 or 70 or 100, but with the huge glycemic variability. And this happens with very potent older sulfonylurea. Now you have a drug which produces a very low glycemic variability. Even insulin, when we use insulin, this has a older insulin, has a high glycemic variability. Now we have a better insulin. They have the minimal or low glycemic variability and no significant drug interaction. So it is the pioneer in dipeptide peptidase 4 inhibitor class. This is the will derived from Will Howard, one of the person whose name goes with and who was the who invented the vildagliptin. Da for the dipeptide aminopeptidase, Cle, which was WHO suffix for the antidiabetic drugs, and 10 is the enzyme inhibitor. We have 4 or 5 variety of gliptins available. We have a conventional vildagliptin, the another was with the Novartis before, DP472, which was the first one. Then we had a saxagliptin, AstraZeneca. Then we had a sitagliptin from Merck. We have now linagliptin as well. And then we have much other gliptins also now we understand, sinagliptin. Newer gliptins are in the pipeline. One of the reasons why vildagliptin is very predictive in the action, scientific action, is because of the binding advantage and the comparatively like sita and allogliptin, they also bind, but they bind and then the release is, it is a bidirectional chemical reaction. So it matters how strong you bind and when the action is done, how quickly it is released. Natural substrate like GLP, it binds, gets released, and then from the receptor, it goes off after the action is completed. Then we have substrate enzyme blocker. Blocker means you block the receptor, the job is done. You don't inhibit, you just block it. And when you block it, then like Vilda and Saxa, when the kinetics is done and the substrate is over, all enzymes have similar principle of action. They act on the substrate. And when the substrate is consumed, the job is done. They have to leave the receptor and go back. And they have to be inactive. If it doesn't happen, then toxicity develops. One of the reasons why Vilda is so safe, because the moment job is done, it leaves the receptor and goes back, and that's called the negative kinase. So GLP to stay active, the DP4 inhibitor has to stay bound to DPP4, and this is the fast and tightening binding with equilibrates, and then it slowly dissociates. Number one advantage. Sitagliptin, fast binding, fast release. Saxagliptin, again fast but slow release. And competitive inhibitor like linagliptin also have the same advantage. The activity even after dilution as opposed to sitagliptin, and this is what the requirement is, that when you dose-dependent inhibition of sitagliptin, and when after dilution, inhibition, there's a successful gap, there's significant gap between the two. The reversal of inhibition and maintenance of inhibition with dilution. Meaning by, when you inhibit the drug, it has a different action. And when you maintain it of inhibition with dilution, the vildagliptin, then the binding site and the action becomes much more predictive. Henceforth, decreasing DPP-4 enzyme activity with increasing concentration of sitagliptin, you see a wide range, whereas in vildagliptin, range is quite narrow. So vildagliptin with dose of 50 milligram, it's a BD, does almost 97% 24-hour inhibition. And that's a great, you see all across the board, Citalina, Tenla, none of them have. In fact, tenlagliptin is one of the weakest, 53.9% inhibition. So you may require to give 2 times. Even then, you may not achieve it. Whereas sitagliptin, 100 milligrams, close to 80%, linagliptin, 84.2%. So 80%, more than 80% DPP-4 inhibitors over 24 hours is therapeutically necessary for gliptin to show fair efficacy. You can think of why tenlagliptin sometimes does not respond as expectation. Now, what are the clinical outcomes? Among DPP-4 inhibitors, vildagliptin is known to be an effective and safe therapeutic option. And in a study evaluating the efficacy and safety of different DPP-4 inhibitors, vildagliptin was more effective in decreasing insulin requirement. And that's our aim. Insulin is vital, but if there are reasons and we have to use large dose of insulin, one of the advantage of the gliptin, especially the vildagliptin, is the dose would be much lesser and achieving glycemic control when compared to other DPP-4 inhibitors. Greater reduction in fasting plasma glucose with the gliptide compared to sitagliptin, and this is almost 21.9 milligram per deciliter comparison to baseline from the sitagliptin. There's also greater reduction in MAGE. This I was talking to you. This is the median amplitude of glycemic excursion. And this would decide 2 factors. We talked before. This would decide the glycemic variability. And also this would decide time in range. Time in range used especially for the insulin. But if you look the glycemic variability, it has a significant advantage in preserving the endothelial cell. Now, when you are using vildagliptin, fasting, postprandial, and mean plasma glucose excursion. This is responsible for the minimum glycemic variation, decreased significantly along with vildagliptin group, and plasma glucagon levels were more suppressed during interprandial period. And this is what important, because glucagon is very high. It will keep on pouring and liberating glycogen from the liver. That could cause the trouble in maintaining the glycemic variability. And this is with the GLP-1 sustained increase during the interprandial period, when you are not eating with intact GLP-1. So you are not eating. If the action is there, you may go to hypoglycemia. So glucagon remains open at that time and keeps start mobilizing as and when it is required. During the food, it shut off, and that's what being helped by the vildagliptin. There's greater reduction in HbA1c and fasting blood glucose with the vildagliptin or other gliptins, and this is shown, decrease of 1.4 HbA1c, and also on the fasting blood glucose. This was seen 6 months on HbA1c. Fasting blood glucose was seen on the fast more reduction with vildagliptin 2.44. This was the initial part, and this was the long period. The ability to achieve target goal, and one of the reasons why we suffer more with the complication, because we are do not get the targeted goal as we should. And we all know the epidemiology. Hardly 18% people, 18 to 20% people in this country are at the goal. Maximum we have 32%. In United States, it is again 38 to 40%. In India, it ranges from 18 to 30% with different studies. And this is what I've shown, that the HbA1c goal, we achieved close to 36% patient with vildagliptin, CETA with 25. You will ask me why this 44% gap or 87, it's not 100%. And reason is very simple. Because there are multiple drugs, the duration of diabetes, the addition of the dose, all they affect the targeted HbA1c level. But overall, 36% you get with vildagliptin. And the goal, when you target to 7, when you become too tight, very difficult. When you become little liberal, the 65% with vildagliptin. Improvement in beta cell function, I was talking to you before, and this could be only achieved not all the time you regenerate, not all the time you replicate, but you whatever have undergone dormancy because of glucotoxicity, they get the time and they get the privilege. So improvement in both of the beta cell function, whether you measure by HOMA-IR model, AIR model, there's significant improvement in beta cell function with the vildagliptin. And when you compare it with the other two, like vilda and placebo, 50 milligram and placebo, significant 7.3% improvement in beta cell function comparison to only metformin. So metformin has potential, but regeneration or preservation or improvement in beta cell function has for the first time demonstrated in animal by the vildagliptin. Metformin combination had similar protective effect on the beta cell function, and we talked about this is the area under curve in insulin to glucose. The changes in the life in the area under the curve of insulin to glucose were non-significant both group. They improved insulin sensitivity. HOMA-IR model is one of the very famous model. We all use it, reduction in insulin resistance, and was similar to both group. Postprandial C-peptide, this is important because this could decide how much is your net gain. You can get in the percentage, but postprandial C-peptide is the numerical value which demonstrates us about the credibility of the molecule. This is what have been shown, beta cell function with vildagliptin metformin combination in newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes patient, and there's a significant change in HOMA-B from the baseline to commit confirmed initial treatment. And early combination, this is what is important, right from the beginning. If you want to preserve it, then early combination treatment with vildagliptin and metformin in patients with newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes showed improvement in beta cell function compared to metformin monotherapy. We have a robust safety profile with gliptin, and you know why saxagliptin was badly criticized after Savartimi trial. That advantage we have with vildagliptin, and never ever it have shown any poor cardiovascular effect. And this was the study shown that is the lowest incidence of hypoglycemia, overall robust safety profile, zero edema. You know, glitazones have this problem. 8% abdominal discomfort. Gliptin, because all incretin-based therapy has, they delay the gut transit time, so therefore one can feel bloating, flatulence. Only 8%. GI manifestation like diarrhea only 2%. Little rise in the enzyme 5%. Hypoglycemia still could be, and there are literature which, and we have seen in our practice also, metformin sometime also to some very sensitive patient. Otherwise, 2% hypoglycemia, no nasosinusitis. This is summary of key CV evidence on vildagliptin, and all these studies from 2010 to 70 have shown that vildagliptin was not associated with an increased risk of adjudicated CCV events. Vildagliptin had no major effect on left ventricular ejection fraction. You know there is a gliptin which has, and that gliptin was taken out of the market because it affected with the left ventricular ejection fraction. is not associated with increased risk of MS relative to comparators. 15% lower risk of heart failure with vildagliptin compared to sitagliptin. And this was published. This was published in the trial which was conducted in India also. Vildagliptin showed no increase in risk of adverse CV event compared to other drugs. No difference in incidence rate of first and total hospitalization for heart failure event with vildagliptin compared to sulfonylurea. It is the older sulfonylurea, traditional second generation. Third and modern sulfonylurea, they do not have this disadvantage. So FDA guide on CV safety that CV events adjudication, independent advocate by committee of 5 cardiologists and 1 neurologist, recruitment of patients, elevated CV risk, more than 50% patient with high CV risk should be included in any study, 40% patient with at least 2 CV risk factor, risk ratio 0.84. Minimum follow for 2 years, and this has been presented in many studies. H, initial, interval, verify the last one. And one of the largest real world study assesses vildagliptin versus other oral anti-diabetic drugs, reduction in HbA1c level in Indian as well as global subset of the patient. Initial was the large Asian real trial. Evidence in the drug-naive patient has been significant reduction of HbA1c, 12 to 24 weeks. Interval have shown higher proportion of patients with vildagliptin group achieve targeted HbA1c goal. And verify is the latest one. I think next somebody is going to talk about it. Have been significant reduction in the risk of time to initial treatment failure by 49%. And this is important. Initial monotherapy strategy. Early combination on treatment strategy with vildagliptin plus metformin confers a robust and durable HbA1c reduction and is weight neutral. Therefore, to summarize my presentation, DPP-4 inhibitor addresses unmet need in diabetic management and offer several advantages by minimizing distressing side effects. Vildagliptin has been pioneer in addressing unmet scientific needs and has filled some evidence gap with studies like EDGE, initial, interval, and the most recent is the verified trial. Is a pioneer gliptin which offers better efficacy and safety profile. Thank you. We may take question together, and thank